Start talking, you mean? Are we ready for real? All right. So tonight we're having a last movie outpost special, as it were. First annual, maybe last ever exploitation discussion here. And I've got my friend Josh Hadley that some of you may or may not know from Radiodrome and Lost in Static. What else is the other shows there, Josh?
There was What the Fuck, there's Retrodrome, there's one-off things, but ever since I started going back to school last year, I just don't have time to keep up with this stuff. Now, if it were a job, if I were being paid to do this, hint, hint, I could do it weekly, but I can't justify that with so much schoolwork and all that.
So onlyfans.com/Josh Hadley if you want the shows to come back. Oh, and
I actually considered making an OnlyFans just as a joke, but then I thought, what if it works?
Then you'd really have to show butthole pics. And of course, my favorite of Josh's was one of my favorites was the Grindhouse Purgatory, which
with Pete
is with 42nd Street Pete. So that kind of brings us to what we're going to talk about tonight, which is exploitation movies, B movies, something that we don't really cover on the weekly podcast. And Josh, of course, is the first person that come to mind with that. So we're going to talk about that for about an hour. And when we were talking about this, Josh mentioned, what happened to them. So we had all this great stuff for years, and then I don't know about. How long ago would you say it just sort of dried up more or less? There's still some stuff that comes out. VFW from 2 years ago?
I think what happened is, and now it's going to sound like I'm making a broad generalization, but it's more nuanced than this. But really, streaming is what killed it, because pre-streaming, when you had physical media, these exploitation films. You would seek them out and they would hit their target audience, even with the rental places. And now with streaming, you have more of an audience you can hit, but you don't make any money. So back then, Full Moon could put $750,000, $1 million into a film and actually make that back at the home video market. They can't do that anymore. Now, if Full Moon puts out a movie at $750,000, they're going to lose $700,000 based on streaming. Streaming revenue pays like shit. And so streaming inadvertently has killed the exploitation movie while simultaneously giving it a much broader audience. But it's the filmmaker. They can't make a fucking penny anymore. That's why Tempe Video went out. I'm sure you remember them, Shawn. I mean, they put out low budget. I think Book Walter would admit most of it's crap, but they were one of the people that propped up streaming in the early days, like Hulu and Amazon. They had all the Tempe stuff when nobody knew if this thing would work. And then as soon as Marvel and Paramount and Warner Brothers started licensing their stuff, all these services said to Tempe, we don't need you anymore. And Tempe just can't make it, and they folded a year or two ago. So while you do still have these Dustin Ferguson hacks out there making, vowel shark movies, just put some noun in, or a noun, actually not a vowel, a noun shark movie. You don't make any money off of this. That's why these things look like they cost a fucking $100, because that's what you're going to make on it. So to me, streaming absolutely crippled. It took the kneecaps off of the independent and exploitation film, because there's no money to be made anymore.
Yeah, and I think I would say that is absolutely 98% of the reason, but it feels to me like there's other factors too, of course, and one of them is this attempt at making exploitation movies in a non-earnest way. And that I know some of the guys give me hell for for not liking Kung Fury and some of that sort of stuff, because it's not. And I can't remember if we agreed on this one or not, but I know you agree with me on let's set out to make this bad exploitation movie. It seems
I can't stand so bad it's good, both from the audience or the filmmaker. You have so many of these people that just, why do you like this awful? It's so bad. I love it. I just want to rip the ovaries off of people that say this, because my God, you shouldn't be rewarding bad filmmaking. Now, that there is an asterisk on that, unless it's a satire of bad filmmaking, like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Right.
They didn't make it to make a bad movie. They were satirizing the bad movies from the 1950s. So that's different than Toxic Shark, for example, that is just going, people want bad effects, they want bad acting, they want bad sets, they want bad green screen, because that's what people look for with so bad it's good. And I hate that. That's pulling the entire genre down. It's pulling the entire art of filmmaking into the La Brea tar pits where it will never emerge. This is absolutely ridiculousness that there are so many of these shot in their backyard movies that are shit out every week to the streaming services, and people eat them up. And that's not even getting into the geezer teaser crap.
Yeah, I often wonder, or it's obvious to me that it's not the same audience. So, Sharknado, I'm sure that some people look at that and go, well, Josh and Shawn, they like that kind of stuff. Shawn talks about thriller, cruel picture. But it's not the same. It's not the same. The audience is not the same, obviously.
Neither is the filmmaker.
Well, of course, that goes without saying. But people tend to think, people I think that don't know, or maybe they don't, and I don't want to sound like it sounds better on vinyl snob, but people that don't watch, they don't know there's a difference. They haven't been sort of educated into it. I hate to use that phrase, but would you agree with that? There's definitely, there's the connoisseur of exploitation that gets it, and then there's the fan that watches, Sharktopus 3, and it's just not the same. It might on the surface to the layman seem the same, but it's not. And the exploitation movies often are made seriously. They're not set out to make a bad movie. Now they might be made to be, make a profit above everything else, but somebody was trying, somebody actually cared and was like, well, we're doing this, but let's try to make it entertaining, at the very least entertaining, because the longer it runs, the more money we make off of it. And
I think things like Kung Fury and things like that are, these like ridiculous 80s or 70s throwbacks, none of these get it right. That they're always, we're paying homage to the films we grew up with. First of all, no, you didn't. You're 20 fucking years old. You did not grow up with these films. You grew up post 9/11, for fuck's sake. Okay. So no, you didn't. And they exaggerate everything to a ridiculous degree that when someone actually goes back and watches something like Future Kick or Cyber Tracker,
Manborg.
Manborg sucked, but when people go back and actually watch the old stuff, they go, this is just lame. It's not fun like Kung Fury was, because Kung Fury was dialed up to fucking 97 out of 10. It's not that this is it's untruthful,
right?
But you don't always have to be truthful with an homage or anything like that. But it's ridiculously untruthful.
And I think that, and we were discussing this a couple of weeks ago on the regular live stream, and I said I thought it was sort of mean-spirited towards those type of films too. It was not, and I know the guy that made it was like, oh, it's done out of love, but I watched that and I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think it was. To me it was, haha, look at this stuff from the 80s and how lame it was. Oh, let's make fun of it.
It's also a lack of understanding. For instance, they latch on to one element of, say, an 80s exploitation movie, and they forget everything that's around it. Like, if you watch any slasher throwback, whether it's the American Horror Story season or any of these modern slasher movies that are supposed to be 80s style throwback slashers, every character is so fucking unlikable. You can't wait for them to die.
Yeah.
And their response is always, well, like the Friday the 13th movies had those characters. Aha, they did, but they were one or two characters.
Right.
You have every character as the unlikable piece of shit you want to see die. You misunderstood what those 80s movies were. And I'm not saying that they were great. I recently, my girlfriend had never seen a Friday the 13th movie. So about 2 years ago, we watched all of them. I brought my box set over, and I hadn't seen these in 20 years easy. They're not good. They just aren't good.
But they're fun.
I was shocked at how much I didn't enjoy these.
You telling me you didn't think part 6 was great, and
I
part
still think
3?
Part 6 is the best one, but most of them, maybe it's because I've been trained as an editor. I just look at these and go, that was unnecessary. You need to cut that. Why was that there? Like, most of these don't need to be more than 35 minutes long. I'm like, you could cut so much out of these movies and the story doesn't change.
Well, that's another
thing. So they were
thing.
driving me crazy.
But, that's part of exploitation B movie is the padding, a very slow pace at times. That's some of the charm for me. And for the record, 3 is probably my favorite, because who doesn't like Shelley? You show me somebody that doesn't like shit. Who? Did you just admit that you don't like?
I can't. What an annoying fucking incel of a character. It's like you in another universe. It's ridiculous.
What do you mean? Well, the only difference is he has more hair than me, and I think he's Jewish and I'm not. But otherwise, that's probably pretty close.
You brought up something else too, the padding. So how did we get to this point where run times have swapped themselves? Because when we were growing up, if a movie was over 90 minutes, it better have earned the ability to be over 90 minutes. Nowadays, if a movie is under 90 minutes, it gets shit on for, oh my God, there's nothing here. And yet so many of these movies, like, it doesn't matter whether you loved Villeneuve's Dune or not, it's an hour too long. There's an hour of that movie that doesn't need to be in that movie.
I think that's debatable, but that's straying off.
The Batman, there's no reason it needs to be 3 hours long. Zero. There's no argument that this needs to be 3 hours long.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but that's a universal statement from the guys on the website. I think everybody agreed it was about an hour too long, or at least 30 minutes too long. I think it's somewhere from there. So, but I mean, like the movies we grew up on, if you take out all the unnecessary nonsense, most of them would clock in at around 45 to 50 minutes. What's wrong with that? How did we get to this point where, well, if it's not an hour 20, it can't be called a feature. So we have to drag this out because you're making the movie worse by dragging it out to an hour 20. Instead of having a nice, tight 45-minute story, why can't that be considered a movie? I think that the binge watching, the people wanting to sit down on Netflix and watch, your favorite show, The Big Bang Theory, for 12 hours straight. I think they like that, so they want that in a movie. I think that might have some, I think that might have something to do with it, because this whole binge watching thing seems to be very popular. So I can see that being, well, audiences, they binge at home for hours and hours, so they can tolerate a longer movie. But at the same time, like you just brought up the whole binge watching thing, and I don't like that term, because I think I know you don't. That's why I used it. Binging should be just akin with purging, and that's it. It shouldn't be about video watching. Well, they are purging. If you sit down for an entire season of The Big Bang Theory in one go, you're purging something. Believe me. Well, you're already brain dead if you're doing that. But yeah. But the point is, when I was growing up, there were, and this is a strange argument to make, but I think there's too much choice now.
When I was growing up, I would scan the TV guide to see what movie was on some late UHF station at 3 a.m, or what new tape might be coming out on VHS. We valued those. We went out of our way. I need to see this. I've read about this. I need to see this movie. Nowadays, people just have movies on for the background noise. They'll have movies on while they're playing video games or cooking dinner. The movie has lost value. It's not valued anymore. Nobody goes, I need to see this movie, and I will go out of my way to see this movie. It's, even when something comes out in the theater, I'll catch it when it hits streaming. It's just such an inevitability now.
What was the last thing that has come out that you thought, oh, I've got to see that? Not for review purposes or whatnot, but just you were legit excited for it.
Probably Color Out of Space, which was right before COVID. Because I remember I went out of my way. I live near Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I drove all the way to Milwaukee to see that opening night at the special screening where Nick Cage was. He wasn't there at our theater, but, was live streamed to all the theaters showing it the opening night. So I drove 2.5 hours each way to go see Color Out of Space because it's a new Richard Stanley movie. It's an H.P. Lovecraft movie. I went out of my way for that.
Didn't you interview the director?
Prior to that, he hadn't made Color Out of Space yet, but yes, I did interview Richard Stanley. So. I think he was getting ready to make Color Out of Space at that point.
Yeah. Which I think that Color Out of Space, that movie probably would qualify as modern exploitation. It'd fall sort of within what we're talking about here. It's hard.
Yes, it would. But I'll give Color Out of Space a little more of an edge, the same way I would Mandy or Synchronicity or any of these other movies. It's an actual movie. There's actual filmmaking techniques. It's not some guy shooting half-naked women in a pond and then adding a CG shark to it. It's an actual movie with an actual story to tell.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It didn't live up to my expectations.
You told me you didn't like it.
Yeah, it was all right. I revisited after we talked after I first watched it, and I was like, yeah, I was too harsh on it, I think, because I was expecting, I don't know, I was expecting fidelity to the Lovecraft story completely, which was, I shouldn't have done that. But
he did a fairly decent obviously he updated it. There are things that needed to be changed. Unless you're going to set this in like the 1890s, you have to change parts of the story. Yeah.
Did you see the Prisoners of Ghostland?
Not yet. I have the DVD, but I have not had a chance to watch it yet. I thought the trailer looked really good, though.
It's very Japanese. It's a very Japanese exploitation movie, if you know what I'm saying. It's very, Ichi the Killer, sort of Visitor Q. Japanese movies have their own. They have a certain feel. And it is definitely that. The director's Japanese. But if you don't like Japanese B movies, you might not like that one. But
I'm not as big into Japanese cinema, but I would say I'm more into Hong Kong cinema. And strangely enough, not the Shaw Brothers stuff. I'm into Hard Boiled and A Better Tomorrow. And the Hong Kong crime films is what I really liked.
Hard Boiled is one of the greatest action movies ever made, in my opinion. And people, I don't know how many people that watch this live stream, or not this particular one, but the normal one. I don't know how familiar they are with that, but that's one of, and that it's got a hell of an impressive long take in it, and in a hospital shootout.
And the most impressive thing is, you don't notice it's a long take. My girlfriend and I were watching it, and, she'd seen it before, but not for, 15, 20 years. We were watching it on DVD, and I pointed out to her, they're in the elevator and to change floors during the gunfight. And I'm like, you'll notice it's been like 7 minutes and the camera hasn't cut yet. But because they step into that elevator and the doors open and close, even though it's not in front of them where you could hide a cut, people don't realize the camera's been rolling this whole time.
Yeah. And and the amount that happens on camera during that long take too is what both characters crisscross each other
to the end of the earth, man.
No.
You know?
Yeah. It's one of the greatest ever was, and it does not get enough credit. The Killer is another good one, and there's one. Have you ever seen Full Contact? It's
the name
Hong
doesn't
Kong.
sound familiar,
Yeah,
but with Hong Kong cinema, I could have seen it under a different title.
I don't think it has any alternate titles, but it's possible.
They're not as bad as Italians when it comes to alternate titles,
right?
But
so,
I just to get back to topic. So I'm just so irritated at what is considered a modern exploitation film. And especially because, and it's not because these are shot on digital, because nowadays that's all you can do. I mean, like, I'm in school for digital media technology. Digital is the future, whether I like it or not. But here's the thing. You can shoot on digital and it doesn't have to look digital. I'm not talking adding a film filter or, digital scratches or anything to make it look like 35. I'm saying they light like they're shooting for digital. I'm sure you've seen this. Have you seen the Moon Knight series yet?
No, I'm not going to watch something made by groomers.
It's not good. And I'm a huge Moon Knight fan. That's why I wanted to see it, but they've, fucked the character in every way you can think of. But there's this thing, I'm sure you've seen it in lots of movies, where the lighting has this weird purple hue to it, or like that puke green lighting hue to it. That's digital lighting. Now look at a movie like VFW, which was shot on digital.
Beautiful.
The movie
beautiful colors.
The lighting doesn't look digital, does it?
No,
it doesn't look like soft 4Ks. It doesn't look like digital 4K. They made the lighting look like it would have looked on 35 millimeter.
It looks great.
Yes, exactly. But most of these movies, they're like, well, it looks great in my monitor. Well, you're looking at it on a digital monitor. Try and imagine what this should have looked like if it were shot on 35. I hate when you immediately see a TV show or a movie and the lighting immediately gives away, oh, this is digital. It's absolutely shot on digital. So I'm not against digital, Shawn. I'm against the look of digital. You don't have to. I mean, look at Mandy. Mandy looks like it was shot on 35. It wasn't. It was shot on, I think, a red. No pun intended to how red the movie is. But you get my point. It doesn't look digital. The lighting doesn't look digital.
I didn't think that Color Out of Space looked... I mean, it obviously was, but I didn't think it was too egregious for it either.
Well, I think in that case, because I brought up purple lighting, the purple lighting was necessary because that's literally what the color from outer space is supposed to look like. So I'll give them a pass on the purple lighting in that because that's baked into the concept.
Sure. Yeah, well, I mean, the more unnatural it looked, the more it worked and with the story, because the whole thing was it was supposed to be a color that humans had never seen before. So, what are you going to do? If you achieve that, who's going to complain, right?
Like, but I mean, it's even, digital effects can look 100% realistic to the point where you don't even notice it, except when you do. Have you seen Nightmare Alley?
Not yet. Is it any good?
Other than being a half hour too long, yes. I thought it was very, very good. There were just parts that needed to be trimmed out. But in general, it was very good. And it's, as much practical as possible. And the CG looks fantastic. You can't even tell what's CG without looking at the behind the scenes. Except for one moment. There's a moment near the beginning. It's not a spoiler because it happens within the first 10 minutes. Bradley Cooper sets a house on fire, and it's clearly digital fire. Now, I get it. You probably couldn't have Bradley Cooper escaping an actual burning house and be able to see the man's face. I get it was probably a safety thing. But that immediately I noticed that is digital fire. That is not actual fire.
You know what? Slightly tangent here. I watched something again. I hadn't seen it in probably 20 years, but I watched it again yesterday, and it surprised me, the practical effect. And it had a computer generated effect in it, and I think it was one of the first ones. But do you remember young Sherlock Holmes?
The 1986 movie, the one.
Yeah.
Didn't Spielberg produce that? I don't think he
He
directed it, but he produced it, right?
He did.
Okay.
He did.
Are
And
you talking about the stained glass warrior?
Yes. Yes. But some of the practical effects in it, I had forgotten how many there were and how good it was. And I knew it was a good movie. I liked it. That's why I revisited it. But I had forgotten about that. And I was like, damn, that's pretty ahead of its time. I did not realize that was a digital effect or computer generated effect on that.
But there's this weird thing where the digital effects are getting more advanced and yet look worse.
Yeah.
Go and watch X-Files Fight the Future. That was 98, 97, the first X-Files movie, somewhere around there.
What? No, wait a minute. Did you say 97 or 87?
97.
Oh,
97,
I thought you said
87. Somewhere
Yeah.
around there. And when the FBI building blows up near the beginning, it looks 100% realistic. And then you watch the behind the scenes and you find out they really did blow it up, but then they expanded the explosion with CG. I could not tell the difference until they told me some of that explosion was CG. And that was in the fucking 90s.
Yeah.
Now, as soon as you see an explosion in a movie, you go, that's digital. That wasn't real.
Oh, they've gotten so lazy. Even gunfire now is digital. It'll just flash the gun. You don't even see empty cases flying out. And worst of all, the biggest sin of all is the digital blood splatter from wounds, being shot or stabbed, or that's just the worst. Is there any greater crime than the no squibs anymore? I don't think so, man. That's about as bad as it gets.
That's pretty bad. But then look at something like where movies have gotten so used to using digital, they don't even use props anymore. Now, it's not a good movie, but look at Star Trek Into Darkness. Near the end, when the Tribble comes back to life, it's a CG Tribble, Shawn. They literally couldn't have a fucking prop of a Tribble in front of Carl Urban.
Yeah, well, these things...
Why did you need to CG that?
I don't know, to match the rest of the shitty looking on camera effects. I don't know.
I mean, to me, digital has become a crutch, and that's what I don't like. Is that it's become a crutch. It should be a tool, but too many people are propping themselves up with it. Yeah,
I agree with you there. I liked it better in the days when it was expensive. It was more expensive to do that than it was to have practical effects. That was the...
Well, I'm probably about to make a weirdly controversial statement here.
Uh-oh, hot take incoming.
Look at a movie like Shark Attack 3, okay, where they use actual shark footage and then just, green screen people flying into their mouths and stuff.
Yeah.
That looks fucking better than anything in a Sharknado movie.
Well, I have not seen it.
That looks like shit.
I have to take your word for that one. Have you seen all of the Sharknado movies? I have to ask.
I saw the first one because I didn't know what it was. I saw it when it first came out, and then it was like, nope, I'm not doing this. And they just seemingly kept going. And then Sci-Fi Channel went down, or sorry, Syfy, which sounds like a venereal disease that you'll get from fucking aliens. But Syfy just went down that shark hole. Like I said, noun, shark. Some noun, toxic shark, dead shark, Jurassic shark, zombie shark, whatever it is. Something, shark, and that's all they freaking air anymore, and it's ridiculous.
I think I saw an advertisement for like Aquarium of the Dead the other day on one of the channels, and I thought, oh, brother. I
saw that flipping through Amazon, I think, with my girlfriend, and it was like, it's going to suck, so let's not.
I didn't even bother to read a blurb on that one.
The only title I've done that for was the actual title of the movie caught my attention, and I went, okay, bad filmmaker, you got me on this one. It was called, this is the actual title, Halloween Pussy Trap Kill Kill.
Oh, dude, I would have been sold on that too.
Exactly. My girlfriend and I watched that last Halloween, and we were like, I need to check this out. Now, it was
a great title.
It is the most Rob Zombie wannabe ever.
Ugh.
The filmmaker absolutely was trying to be Rob Zombie with no money.
That kind of turns me off as soon as you said Rob Zombie, though.
It's his style. I mean, he had nothing to do with it. But the filmmaker, who I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, he's one of those guys. You get these certain, and I almost hesitate to call them filmmakers, Shawn, because they'll put out literally 20 movies in a year. You know, when you're spending 2 whole weeks to shoot a movie, you know it's gonna be good, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you're spending 2 weeks shooting a film, it's gotta be great.
It's probably like direct to YouTube quality at least.
But these people call themselves filmmakers. It's like, no, you're not. You're a content maker.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing.
So back to, I fear we're veering off too much here, but we got 30 more minutes. So what would you list as your top modern exploitation movie? Say stuff made in the last, 5 years, or make it 10 if you can't find enough to feel from the last 5 years. But what would some of your...
Obviously the two Panos Cosmatos movies, Beyond the Black Rainbow and Mandy, were both absolutely fantastic and just overflowing with style.
Yeah.
There's this weird movie. It has a pretty bland title, but it's called Synchronicity. It's from 2016. It's Michael Ironside's in it. That's the only reason I rented it, and then I was blown away at this movie.
I have not seen that one.
It was so smart and so well made. I couldn't believe nobody talks about this film. And it's a movie you almost literally can't advertise it because there's so much of the plot you would have to give away to even get someone interested. You kind of ruin the movie by trying to sell people on wanting to see the movie. Yeah. So in a way, it shot its own advertising in the foot, if that makes sense.
I think we talked about this when it come out. Now that I remember you saying
it's that time travel one.
Yeah. Okay.
That kind of cyberpunk one. Yeah.
What else you got?
There would be Let the Corpses Tan. I can't remember if I showed you that one or not.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
That it's like, what if Orson Welles made a Quentin Tarantino movie? And I think that's probably an accurate way to describe it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would have struggled to explain it, but that sums it up better than I would than anything I would have probably thought up for it.
There are so many shots in that where I said to myself, this is an Orson Welles shot. This is Orson Welles shooting this movie, despite the fact that he's been dead since 1985.
Yoda's going to hop in with us for a second because he's been producing the show for those watching. You can't see him, but he's going to come in for a second. But go ahead.
Hey guys, how you doing? Nice to meet you, Josh.
Hello.
I've been taking notes
on some of the movies I've been mentioning.
Well, just some of the points that you've made. So I start with Kung Fury. Now, I admit I watched Kung Fury when it came out. It was like 2015, 2014.
2014, I think.
Something like that. And it came out on YouTube, and I went, oh, that was kind of funny, and kind of enjoyed it, and we smiled about it, and then it went out of my brain. And to me, it was never more than a YouTube parody that these guys did. For some reason, I've heard you, I've heard Shawn, I've heard others just have this horrible backlash out on it, like the death of cinema or something. I'm like going, I don't think this thing is important enough to be any of that, to be that great or that bad. It's just this little thing. And I'm trying to figure out how this has become such a source of animosity or anger. And I'm like, why?
Something like Kung Fury is the symptom of the disease,
right?
That it's the symptom that this is where things are going. Because remember, after Kung Fury, you had Escape from North Korea, and I mean before that, I think Manborg was a year or two before that. I can't remember exactly when Manborg came out.
About that. Or maybe a little.
I mean, you have so many of these that have come out now that are aping Kung Fury, because Kung Fury was a gigantic success financially.
Crowdfunded it. Yeah, he crowdfunded it
Yeah.
and turned it in. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got music videos that are in this style, and like I said, it's a symptom of the disease that is this so bad it's good throwback crap. Like you had that American Horror Story season where the whole thing was shot full frame and it's all done like it's an 80s slasher movie. It was so insulting. I felt like I needed to almost take revenge for that movie.
We should
that series.
That sort of thing can be done right though when it's done with earnestness. So I think we all agree Turbo Kid is a good example of a
Turbo Kid. I love
Turbo
Kid. I go back and watch Turbo Kid. I don't go back and watch Kung Fury, but I just didn't see it as like this. Like if you're gonna say, well, everybody copied it. Well, fuck, everybody copied The Matrix too. You know, everybody copied Harry Potter. We couldn't get away from those young adult things. I mean, if something makes money, then everybody's gonna copy it. And for the original one, I was like, this is a fun little parody video. That's all it is. That's it. It's nothing more. And I kind of like going.
But it
was 40 minutes long. I mean, it can barely be considered a movie.
I don't think he really promoted it though. It was not like, oh, this is he was like, oh, this is a love letter to these great movies we love.
Well, he was from Norway.
It was a Dear
or
John
something.
letter,
I
not
think
a love
Dear John. It was a cuck letter. Yeah. Like,
he was a European.
but
idiot.
I mean,
so
like,
I mean, I kind of see it as that's what I found fascinating about. It's like this is how Europeans see us.
But okay, look at this example. On Joe Bob Briggs' Shudder show, he mainly shows, drive-in stuff, literally from all over the time frame. And the least popular movie he ever showed was probably the most articulate and artistic movie he ever showed. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
That's so out of place for you.
but if I say it is a black and white Iranian vampire movie all done in Persian, you would immediately turn up your nose and go, what the fuck? But then you go, oh yeah, it's also a pure exploitation movie that just happens to be shot like Bergman would have shot it.
Yeah.
Well, so that gets me to so what I think, if I'm understanding you, is that your real irritation is intent versus results. And
that's a big part of it.
If you talk
That's
about like a Troll 2 or something like that, or these stuff that back in the 80s that were made with sincerity but just were crap, versus somebody trying to make crap, is that the thing that's really getting to you here?
In a way, it's like, look at Ed Wood, the man, not the Tim Burton film. Look at Ed Wood. You can feel the passion in those movies, in Night of the Ghouls and Plan 9 from Outer Space and Bride of the Monster. You can feel how much he thought he was making a good movie. Now you look at a Dustin Ferguson movie. On a technical level, they're the same quality. Obviously technology being, different.
Relative,
you get my point.
Yeah, sure.
But on a Dustin Ferguson, all you feel is, I'm making content. You can't feel Edward D. Wood Jr.'s passion through that. Roger Corman, even at his most crass and exploitative, you can feel he still had a bar he would not drop below. And nowadays, like I said, it's not complete intent. That's not 100% of it, but that's part of it. It's also what happens. For instance, and I do not blame these men for this at all, Mystery Science Theater has destroyed an entire generation of filmgoers.
I agree. That's why I've never really liked it at all.
No, it's not their fault. They didn't say, hey, we want to destroy cinema. But their fans, especially those who've come up since 95 or so, look at anything, like any movie that's ever been on Mystery Science Theater, well, it's a bad movie. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on Mystery Science Theater. Fuck no, they've shown some amazing, great films on there, and they've also made it funny by riffing on them. But you have this MST-ification of cinema that, oh, this is in black and white and it's a monster movie. Well, this is, you hear this all the time. I can't believe this never made it onto Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah.
Fuck you. It's whether they intended it or not, and I don't believe they did.
I guarantee they did.
Wrecked a generation of cinema goers.
I heard somebody once say that the Giant Ant movies, like, that should have been I was like, you're fucking
That's
stupid.
one of the
That
best giant monster movies ever made.
Yeah.
And arguably a lot people, when I point out to them how similar it is to Aliens, especially the end, they're like, if they've seen both movies, they're like, oh shit, I never even thought of that. But it is a very much alike.
Well, I guarantee that they didn't, because they did a thing after Misty 3K for a long time. I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but they called it Riff Tracks. And
Riff Tracks is still a thing, yeah.
Is it still a thing? And they would do actual, when I say actual movie, I mean, popular, expensive classics even, especially from the 80s and stuff that we would like, from Star Wars to, whatever. So in my mind, what I think is that the reason why they did the movies that they did is because those are the ones that could get a hold on and legally show on TV. Yeah. Not because they were intentionally picking bad movies.
Yeah, I don't think they did it on purpose. In fact, I would argue that they might have even really liked those movies, and is the reason why they picked them too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they still did the damage,
Look at, like, in the KTMA season, they actually did Phase 4, which might be one of the smartest sci-fi films to come out of the 1970s.
Oh, the Ant movie. That's right. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yes, it's so intelligent. Like, if I said out loud, though, it's about super intelligent ants that take over the world, you would go, oh yeah, that's Mystery Science Theater fodder. But then you watch the movie and you say, this is fucking deep, man.
Yeah,
this is a deep movie.
That was a hard movie to watch at 12 years old, I'll tell you that.
I tell you,
you didn't want to go play in the sandbox after that, did you?
I tell you, the hardest movie I ever watched at age 10 was Made Them Die Slowly, a.k.a. Cannibal Ferox. That I've never recovered from that castration and then eating it scene. I've never been the same.
No, I'll one-up you. Fulci Zombie. Fucking eyeball, man. The splinter in the eyeball.
That never bothered me too much, but the castration.
I don't like eye damage. I can't deal with eye damage in movies. I can't. Eye damage and needles. I have a thing with needles. I hate seeing people get shots, and I hate seeing eyes get messed up. But But my point is, you have these people who don't understand cinema. These people that look at what they had for breakfast as nostalgia. I mean, literally, look what happened with the Robocop remake. Before they made it, there was going around the Orion MGM offices, somebody said the original movie looks like it's made with action figures. We need it to look realistic. Okay? And the thing is, nowadays, if you don't make it with CGI, nobody wants it.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely agree with you on your earlier points about CG. To me, it's like a 2-year-old with his dad's gun. It's just wielded by people who stood on the shoulders of giants and don't understand what they have.
Don't pull a Jurassic Park quote on us here.
It is. And, well, Jurassic Park is absolutely one of the ones that I'm still amazed at how good that looks. You don't even have to go back that far. You could go to Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series and look at how badly they regressed on CG for whatever reason. Yeah. I do wonder, though, you know, some of the things that you're talking about with exploitation movies, you were mentioning there's no way to make money on that. And I've heard you say that, too many people are creating content, which is true because any schmuck such as myself can get a hold of a camera and just start broadcasting. So I hear what you're saying there. However, is YouTube or Rumble or maybe Vimeo or some other video platform that I'm not thinking of, could that be a new platform that exploitation could find a home for again?
It could be, but
I don't think so. I'm going to disagree with you, Shawn. I don't think so.
What's stopping me and you from getting the funding and then making a movie and uploading it on YouTube or whatever? I mean,
getting the funding.
Well, besides that,
because
if we
Shawn,
go ahead.
this is what's been stopping me. People always point out, well, then why don't you make your own movie? And I say, because I don't have any money. I have plenty of scripts. I have plenty of ideas I've got. I can't do them for $1,000. I would rather not do it than do it like shit.
But let's just say that you did have them. Let's say, I won the lottery, and I'm like, Josh, let's make that, rape revenge fantasy movie we've always wanted to make. And so what if we uploaded it to, or we made it available on whatever, why couldn't you do that? I mean,
I actually would. I'm actually one of the people that would say, let's just sell it on DVD.
I would agree with you.
Let's make it on DVD. And I mean, we all know, because Shawn and I are both pirates. I don't know about you, but Shawn and I are pirates.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
It would show up on Pirate Bay, within a day or two. But we could at least say, no, you need to watch this on DVD. And I would make the DVD like $4.99. I would make it so affordable that it's actually cheaper than if you had streamed it.
Yeah, you'd have. Yeah, of course. But so that's another question: is guys like me and you that like this kind of stuff, especially, how many? And I still buy physical media, but how many of us are still buying physical copies? How many of us have converted to like, oh, I'm just going to pirate, or I'm just going to watch it on when it's streaming? I wonder about that, because I've often thought guys like us, me, you, Cecil, as being like, oh, I've got to have a physical copy of that, unless you just can't. But I wonder about that. How many fans of the genre fans still want it, or have been like, no, I'm done with that.
I know that market is shrinking, and I think that's unfortunate. There's nothing I can do about that, but I can keep buying what I'm buying. Like there are shows and movies that are on exclusive to streaming services I would absolutely buy on DVD or Blu-ray. Like Nicholas Winding Refn did that Too Old to Die Young.
Right.
I absolutely would buy that.
Me too, man.
But Amazon refuses to put it out.
Have you seen that, Yoda?
No, I haven't. It's
overlong, but it is brutal and beautiful at the same time. It's too long.
I love Refn, and it's just as beautiful and dark and violent as any Refn movie.
So I'm in between you guys. I do like the digital, because I like the convenience of, whether it's a TV or phone, whether I'm here, whether I'm not here, being able to watch it whenever I want, and dealing with a disc and everything, it severely limits me. However, I don't
you
like
to get up off the couch.
Yeah, I'm a very lazy man, and you know this, sir. God, change the thing to video too. I don't even know how the fuck to do that anymore. But I do like to own the copy. So I set up a server downstairs, and I bought a lifetime supply subscription to Plex, and I'll put my own digital copies I store on my own on backed up hard drives. Most people aren't going to want to put the effort into putting in that kind of hardware to do that. So
that's more complex than just buying a Blu-ray.
But it's not like. But I can't play the Blu-ray on my phone.
But there's also, and I get what I'm about to say is for a limited and smaller market.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, my girlfriend goes on vacation with her parents once a year up to a cabin. There is no internet.
Right.
There is a DVD player, and that's it. So she can't even bring like she just bought all 3 of the Marvel Spider-Man movies on Blu-ray, but she was looking for them on DVD. They're not even offered on DVD.
I think
you're talking a very specific situation. I mean, hell, you can buy a Blu-ray player for $40 now and take it up with you. It's
But you don't. Well, you're going to buy that and then buy every
I did a
movie
whole video on my DVD collection. I mean, I have a huge array of physical media, but I only have so much space. And to me, I have grave concerns about owning it in the cloud, like buying it on Prime or buying it on Vudu or that kind of thing. Something goes wrong, or somebody decides you said the wrong thing, and suddenly all your movies are gone. Or just they have a
I'm gonna
technical
bring up,
glitch. I worry about that. But if I have it here locally, I have them backed up, all that kind of stuff. I feel like I kind of get the best of both worlds. Yeah, if I go out to a cabin for 1 week and I don't have access to what the fuck are you going out to a cabin to watch movies for in the middle of the woods? Jesus.
Well,
you're
know,
supposed to be getting
I
murdered by a psychopath. Everybody knows this.
I want to bring this up. And it's ironic with the book I'm about to say, but this is what actually happened. Look what happened with Kindle in 1984 by George Orwell. A couple of years ago, everyone woke up one day and their copy of 1984 that they bought on Kindle was gone.
Yeah, I'm very worried about that kind of thing.
Because Amazon had lost the rights to it. And the irony of it being 1984 makes it just funnier. But it's the fact that everyone, well, I've got why should I buy this book? I've got it on my Kindle. Yeah, now you do. Will you in a year? I physically own the book. I can read it anytime. I don't have to charge the book if the battery is low. I don't trust digital only.
I agree. I have digital copies of movies, and oftentimes I'll have digital, but I always...
Well,
my first
DVD
priority
is digital, so I think what you need to do is go back to film with a hand crank.
Yeah.
If you want to be truly safe.
Actually, I'm started fire and then I use the charcoal to paint.
There you go.
A storyboard on the cave wall out back.
Okay, when I say digital, I mean
somewhat. And it's like, how do you protect yourself and get what you want? For me, it was building a server, having redundant drives, the whole 9 yards, and then having a service that I can access it no matter where I'm at, inside or outside.
Well,
great.
Let me put it this way. They're still finding cave drawings from millions of years ago.
True.
Your backup hard drive is not going to exist in 1,000.
Well, neither are DVDs. They don't last forever either.
That's why
VHS tapes are falling apart now.
Josh has still got a hell of a collection of VHS.
It's the same thing. I can't remember what the movie was off the top of my head, but there was a relatively large movie. It was on Amazon, and they had announced this is leaving Amazon on such and such date, and it vanished. It's not shown up on any other streaming service. And people are like, well, why can't I watch this? You can. You just have to buy the DVD of it. You just can't. People seem to think, well, it's not on streaming, so I can't watch it.
It doesn't exist.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
No, I have a ton of movies on my server that aren't on any damn streaming service.
Oh, yeah.
For
most
that
of my
reason.
Collection.
In fact,
most of my
they're
collection
out of print
stuff.
on DVD, some of them. So it's like I have to go sail the high seas just to get a copy of it.
Right. But to go back to what we were talking about with money, look at I've made fun of them greatly on YouTube every time I go Dollar Tree diving into the Dollar Tree DVD bins. But I was making the joke that, man, if you get your movie released by Magnet Releasing, it's like going straight to Dollar Tree because no one's buying these. And there are some really good films that Magnet is putting out that are winding up at the Dollar Tree.
Well, which is funny because those dollar stores have just exploded across the country. So I don't know. Is that a new market? Interesting.
I mean, you see, like right now, every Dollar Tree in my area, so I'm going to assume it's the same with you guys, has got what in the physical media community we're calling the MGM dumps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We got them at the Dollar Generals, but the same basic deal, yeah.
It's just hundreds and hundreds of copies of the same 50 MGM titles that were just sitting in a warehouse unsold. And even the Dollar Tree is having a problem getting rid of these. Because, I mean, only so many people are going to buy Breakin' and Breakin' 2 on DVD. I'm one of them. But the thing is that MGM eventually got to the point where they said, just dump them for pennies on the dollar. No one's buying these. And I think that is another symptom of this market. Because these movies, every single one that is in these MGM dumps, are also available on Amazon. Because Amazon owns MGM's library now. So you ask yourself, why would people go to the Dollar Tree to buy Shadows and Fog or American Buffalo when they can watch them on their Amazon account? And I say, because I want to own it. I like seeing that on the shelf, and I want to know if Amazon decides I'm going away, then I can still watch it. Or if we get hit by a cyber attack and the internet goes out for, let's just even say, a week.
Yeah, I mean, but it's gonna take something disruptive like that to rechange the market, is what I'm saying. And I mean, things kind of come around. I go to my big giant furniture store here in my neck of the woods, and they've now got a row of turntables, and they're selling vinyl again. So I mean, maybe this circles around. They start printing this stuff again. I'm just worried that they're going to stop doing it altogether, like go stop making physical media. But maybe there's another backlash. I mean, I don't think we're too far away from seeing cassette tapes again. I'm hearing that those are starting to come out.
They actually are.
Yeah.
Ministry just put out their new album, Moral Hygiene. And I just saw Ministry 2 weeks ago. Fantastic show. And when I pre-ordered the new album, like a month or two before it came out, and one of the options was cassette tape. That was one of the options on their website. You can buy our new album on an official cassette tape.
Apparently, they're doing this as merchandise, kind of like a T-shirt. You could buy it this way. One of these groups, I saw it on a channel I watch called Tech Mode. Apparently, one of these groups are putting out their album on Edison cylinders.
No way.
I'm not kidding.
Well, but I mean, in a way, this market also is a backlash on physical sellers. I don't know about you, but I know Shawn's in this market where he likes soundtracks as well as I do. Quite a few movies like older 80s, 90s movies that never had a soundtrack released now are getting a soundtrack release on vinyl only. Nice. And I'm going, God damn it. I would buy this on CD. Yeah. I'm not breaking out my record player to listen to the Mandy soundtrack. Okay? Why? Hey, we're finally releasing, The Howling on the soundtrack on vinyl.
Just what you've all been waiting for.
Time to break out your old CD burner again.
In 30 more years, they'll release it on cassette, and then another 30 years they'll release it on
it's
CD.
like, I don't understand this whole. I mean, I'm not saying the vinyl rebirth, because if that's what you like to hear it on, fine. And if you want to release it on vinyl, I have no issues with that. It's when it's a vinyl exclusive. Even Joe Bob Briggs did that. He's got the bunch of different bands and stuff. They're all released to vinyl only.
Well, they're not. I mean, they're also digital, right? So the idea is we're going to sell the song on iTunes or whatever, Google Music and all that.
I want a CD.
And then merchandise, we're going to sell the vinyl because people like the cover art and stuff. The CD will probably come back, but it's probably going to be a few years.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
I still go through used shops and look through their CDs, and it's almost all this garbage no one's ever going to buy, country music and Christmas CDs and fucking Linnea Rhymes or whatever her name is and all this shit. And every now and then it's like, oh, shit, the Metal Gear Solid 2 soundtrack, or, oh, shit, here's a Dead Kennedys album. Every now and then you find something cool in those.
And in Huntington, West Virginia, it's a college town right by Marshall University where I went to college. There's a used, it started out as a music shop, used, and you can go in there and they've got huge amount of CD, because college kids and stuff and people just bring them in and they give them, I don't know, probably, $1 for them or something, and turn around some for $3. But you can find some amazing stuff in there. They do DVDs, Blu-rays too, all kinds of stuff like that, about any kind of media. But anytime I'm up that way, I always stop in there and spend a couple $100 on, finding stuff like that. Because I still listen to CDs as usually. I'm like you, man. I'm still using that's in my truck. That's what I play on is CDs.
Yeah, I have a CD player in my car.
Yeah.
So that's what I use. I want a CD, and I've got a bunch of doubles where it's like I own the CD in my house, but I'm not willing to leave that in my car. Oh, but I found another copy for 99 cents. Like I just recently picked up Songs in the Key of X. Remember that X-Files album with like Danzig and Iggy Pop and shit on it? I just picked up a second one of that for 99 cents just so I could have it in my car.
That's hardcore, man.
Well,
That's me.
that is an hour, gents. I want to be respectful of everybody's
do you need to go?
Yeah, I've got so much economics homework to do.
Before you go, let's plug your stuff because you need. So Josh also has wrote a comic book that's very good, cyberpunk comic book that through.
I've written two published comic books, and I'm currently in production of another one where I've written all the stories in it, and the art is still being done.
So what? Tell them where they can find those at, or where to at least back the next one.
Neo Tokyo, The Truth is a Virus. You should be able to get contact on Facebook, Max DeVille, or go to Atrocity Press.
Yeah. Max is a friend of ours who's hopefully we can get on if this little sideshow goes on for more than a couple. Hopefully Max will come on. Max is pretty cool too, but he's the publisher. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wrote 3 stories, even though I'm only credited with 2. One I took a pseudonym for Gore Shriek Delectus from Fantico Press.
Great name.
And right now I've written all the stories for the first issue of Beyond Midnight for Fantico, but I don't know exactly when that'll be coming out because the artwork isn't done yet. So that's maybe. But the new issue of Horror Hound with War of the Worlds on the cover, I have an article in the new Horror Hound, although that may not be on the shelf yet.
Yeah, you can find Josh on YouTube. He has what's your YouTube channel name there? Is it? I can't. Josh.
It's not anymore because my main I had my 1201 Beyond account was linked with my Josh Hadley account. Okay. My Josh Hadley account got removed for copyright violations. So while the 1201 channel is still up, I can't log into it anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
So
never mind that.
New one and re-upload everything. But right now it's technically there, but everything's a couple of years out of date because I can't fucking log into it.
Ghost channel. So you could also find Josh at 1201beyond.com, and he's got a mountain of content there, podcasts, Radio Drum, which if you guys like Cinema Snob, he started that. Didn't you start Radio Drum with him? Wasn't that
Brad was on the first 150 episodes, and then after that, Cecil came in, and then Peter, and then it went on for 500 episodes.
Yeah. So you can find Josh and those guys talking about basically what we're talking about tonight here. And he's got some other stuff on there, various other shows.
I write for various horror movie magazines. Yeah. I've written for Hustler, Fangoria, Horror Hound, Rue Morgue, The Dark Side.
He did Beaver Hunt. And
I wish I did Beaver Hunt.
Penthouse
I wish.
Beaver Hunt was always an excellent periodical. So I guess that wraps up our show for tonight. Hopefully somebody will watch it, and we'll Mark Sering from the BB and BC podcast and the Exploitation Film Cast is going to try to join us for the next one. I can't guarantee he'll be on the next one, but maybe Max will, or whoever I can get to come on the next one. But Mark will eventually join us. Depending on scalage and stuff, and maybe Josh will even come back if he feels like it. He's certainly welcome to come back anytime he wants to. And I guess that'll do it. Josh, thanks for coming on, man, at short notice.
Yeah, all of a sudden I get a text and a call from Shawn. Hey, can you do this in a half hour? I guess.
You wouldn't do anything else.
Actually, I was watching G.I. Joe episodes on Hasbro's YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, they've been playing them nonstop back to back for the 40
Yeah, so I was watching some old G.I. Joes when you called me.
Well, I'm sorry that I interrupted that.
Well, actually, I've got economics homework to do, so that's what the rest of my night's going to be. So
yeah, so enjoy that stimulating whatever.
I get to learn about how foreign trade works. So exciting.
I'm glad I'm done with college by decades, but you get to enjoy it.
Hey, in about 4 weeks, I start diversity studies. And I know we're still on the air. I don't care. I'm really looking forward to my diversity studies class, or the class that my girlfriend says, keep your mouth shut, do the work, and keep your head down.
Yeah, that's my advice too.
I don't think I'm going to be able to.
I know you won't, but if, just make it easy on yourself. You're not scoring any points or changing the world by arguing with these professors. And you're one of these days you're going to get one that's a real prick, and it's going to like, that son of a bitch, Josh Hadley. I don't care if he is right. F. How dare he say a woman can't have a penis?
Think of it as like Jane Goodall observing the apes.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it like, you're like, oh, fascinating behavior. That blue-haired professor has such fascinating behavior.
I'm actually not sure who the professor is for this one, but I do know. I'm sure it is a woman, but I do know that if she's anything like my ethics professor, I'll have a lot of fun. Well, I've told Shawn this story before, but like in my ethics class, and I really did do this, we were talking about the pay disparities between men and women. And I pointed out, because this was still during, the pandemic, I said, but with everyone losing their jobs during the pandemic, for every dollar a man loses, a woman's only losing 79 cents.
Hey-o.
And she slammed her head into her hand and went, oh my God.
And it's a good thing that Josh isn't trying to find a girlfriend while he was in college, because that would have ended that.
No, I've been with my girlfriend for 6 years now, so.
He is not, you are not incorrect. I'm sorry,
they don't like that pointed out.
I know. Yeah. I'm sure he had no answer other than to be angry at you.
Well, like I said, she just put her head in her hand and went, "Oh my God!"
You should have said, "Should I mansplain it to you to make it more simple?"
I actually really liked her. She was really cool. She allowed us to go off topic on ethics. So we spent an entire class talking about the ethics of Batman once. Because I started it off, and she's like, you know what? This is let's go down this road.
She said, I've never seen a bigger nerd in my life. So let this freak keep going.
We spent 3 hours discussing the ethics of Batman, so that's something.
Well, that's
I'm going to back away because that sounds like a fascinating discussion. Then I'll keep you away from your homework for another 2 hours.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to you guys later then.
Yep.